Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple. The 2020-2021 season has so far not been kind to Mikel Arteta's Arsenal. At the time of recording, they are 15th, just 5 points away from the relegation zone, and there is growing discontent building in the fan base. The biggest criticism has been of their attack, and they have only scored 10 goals so far, meaning they've only outscored West Brom, Burnley, and Sheffield. But what exactly is going wrong with the attack tactically? And why does Arteta's attacking style seem stale, whereas Pep and Klopp, who use similar mechanisms, have attacks that excel? Let's take a look. Throughout the video, we'll use stats to illustrate certain points, and a great place you can get stats like these, news, and more is the OneFootball app. It's the premier football app that you can get for iOS and Android absolutely free through the link in the description below. When you take a closer look at the stats, Arsenal's attacking woes become more and more concerning. They take just 10.3 shots per game, only bettering West Brom, Burnley, Newcastle, and Sheffield United, fairly defensive sides. This means their front two aren't getting to see much of their ball in dangerous zones, combining for just 3.4 shots per 90. But interestingly, they have spent 27% of their time in the opponent's final third, the 9th most in the league. So getting the ball into the final third isn't the problem, but the chance creation breaks down once there. And this is where Pep and Klopp came in. For the sake of illustrating a few points, we'll use City's 17-18 team and Klopp's 18-19 team as templates, two of the best attacking sides in recent times. Both sides began with a standard-looking base 4-3-3 formation that would morph to a similar shape with some differences. Klopp's side would shift to a 2-3-5 when attacking, with his wingers in Salah and Mane tucking into the half spaces, and both fullbacks in Trent and Robertson hugging the touchline high up. Pep City had slightly more fluidity. They always attacked with the front five, but their wingers, Sané and Sterling, hugged the touchline unlike Liverpool's, and their midfielders in David Silva and De Bruyne pushed into the half spaces. Zinchenko or Delph would tuck into the midfield, and Walker could be the third centre-back to make it a 3-2-5, but could just as easily push into midfield to make it a 2-3-5. We dug into the differences between Pep and Klopp's attacking structures in this video, which will be linked at the end of this one. So, what does this have to do with Arteta's Arsenal? Well, having come through under Pep, it is no surprise he would try to implement some of the same elements. So far this season, he has mainly opted for the 4-2-3-1 or more commonly the 3-4-3, and either way, they get similar attacking results. In the 4-2-3-1, Bellerin and Tierney push high and wide, while Saka and Willian move into the half spaces. Although there is more flexibility on the right, as Bellerin can invert into the half space with Willian staying wide. Lacazette may look like a 10, but he's more of a second forward, occasionally pushing into the box. In the 3-4-3, Tierney, a natural left back, always plays a left centre back for one reason. High up, Lacazette can drop off, allowing Aubameyang central. Bellerin and Saka push high, although Saka moves into the half space, and Tierney can push into the left wing position, meaning that both formations have a similar end structure. So, why did this structure work with Pep, but not Arteta? The obvious answer would be that City have a much higher quality of player, which is true, but there is more to it than that. The first is the sources of goal scoring and creativity in these shapes. City's Pep obviously opted to have creativity come from the half spaces, and have the major goal threats coming from out wide, besides Aguero of course. Some stats back this up, such as the highest expected assists per 90 coming from the half spaces, and the highest XG coming from out wide. In addition, the passes into the final third and into the box also come from the creators in the half spaces. Comparing this to Arteta's men, we begin to see some problems. The half spaces are occupied by Saka and one of Willian or Bellerin. None of these three are creative in the same way in terms of threading balls into the box or even completing key passes. This also shows up in their expected assists per 90, which is low for all three. By Pep having elite creators here, it would force opposition fullbacks narrow to compensate, which then often freed up the wide men. But against Arsenal, opposition defenses can remain wider spaced. Under Pep, the wide men could then provide a genuine goal threat, which could also force the fullbacks wide and then free the attackers, so the opponents had a catch-22. But Arsenal's wide men are not goal threats at all from these scenarios, as their XG and shots per game show, meaning that teams can afford to defend more compactly. So perhaps the Klopp approach would suit them more. Klopp opted for the inverse, having all his creativity come from the wide regions as the fullbacks cross, whilst all the goal threat comes from the half spaces in Salah and Mane. So why does this work and Arteta's method doesn't? The first is aerial threat. Despite not being traditional target men, all three Liverpool forwards are dangerous in the air due to their incisive movement, as shown by Liverpool's central three in this shape having 30 headed Premier League goals in total for Liverpool, compared to Arsenal's 3 in this shape, who have 4 for the club. This could be an issue of supply. Liverpool's fullbacks are amongst the best crossers in the league, and this shows in the statistical differences, with Liverpool's men attempting more crosses and having a higher expected assists per 90 to boot. Perhaps this is why Willian pushes out wide at times to give Arsenal a bigger crossing threat, but of course, it's still not comparable to Liverpool's men. This is before considering that the general goal threat of Liverpool's half-space men versus Arsenal's is way different. Liverpool's men take shots more often and tend to finish with a high expected goals per 90, meaning goals are bound to come. This is in sharp contrast to Arsenal's men in the half spaces, who are fairly blunt. So, to summarize, City know that they don't have aerial threats in the box or great crosses, so they use their midfielders to create. Liverpool know that they have great aerial and general central threat and great creators out wide, so they allow their wide men to do all of the creating. Arsenal have done neither. They have limited crosses from out wide and poor aerial threats, and still attempt more crosses of any of these sides. This is in contrast to City, who have the same conditions but get their half-space men to create instead and the wide men to attack and provide goal threat, which Arsenal also hasn't done. So the most common suggestion to fix this is Mesut Ozil. This is an interesting suggestion, but may not be the quick fix that it seems. The first reason is a phenomenon common amongst us football fans, where when a player is injured or otherwise absent, we only remember the good in their game and the best that that player brings, and assume that if they had been present, they would have been the silver bullet to change the result. Imagine a scenario where Liverpool had lost 7-2 to Villa after Van Dijk had been injured, for example. All of this is to say, some fans may still think of Ozil of 2015-16, who almost broke the assist record. That was almost 5 seasons ago, and he hasn't broken double digits for league assists since. In the last 2 seasons, where he has made over 18 appearances, his expected assists per 90 have never surpassed 0.22, roughly what Willian is producing this season. So this means Ozil may not be a long-term solution. But he is still probably better than what is currently on offer. But the question is, where would he fit in the preferred 3-4-3? Perhaps as the right side forward. However, Ozil would tend to drift around the pitch a lot more, meaning that the attacking structure would be broken. Perhaps they could use the 4-2-3-1 with him at 10. But as discussed, Arsenal's 4-2-3-1 has a very similar end structure to their 3-4-3, so there would be a similar problem. It would also mean a complete change in the whole system, something we have seen Pep struggle with this season as they have also moved to a double pivot system, so that's another consideration. But Arsenal at the moment are playing so poorly that it may be worth the risk for the Gunners, and may turn this situation around. But what do you think is the problem with their attack? Where do you agree and disagree? I'd love to hear it down in the comments below. And if you want even more content whilst helping to support the channel, consider checking out my Patreon at patreon.com/footballmadesimple. You'll get early access to videos, exclusive videos, as well as access to the upcoming FMS video podcast. And a big thanks to all my Patreons, including Diallo, Ibrahim, and Elias, who have recently joined the Ultra tier. But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.